Black Tezzeret Storm is back in Legacy, and today we're playing it with some pretty huge upgrades. Let's go check it out. In front of these Black Tezzeret Storm, and I've actually played this deck once previously. It was a donation deck from Peyton's Story, who submitted their deck once again to be featured here on this channel. In that last video, we were playing Grim Monolith, Karn the Great Creator, and Deathwish. We're not playing any of those cards today. Instead, we're playing some cards that I suggested at the end of that video, like Runehorn Hellkite, so that way you can find it off of your Entomb. We're playing a Candy Trail, that way you could find it off of Urza's Saga. I wanted more targets for our tutors, and having Candy Trail as a consistency card off of Urza's Saga when you're playing a few less tutors makes a lot of sense to me. You can also grab the Candy Trail off of Tezzeret Cruel Captain. With that -3 activation, you can search your deck now for a card that does something other than make mana, which I feel like is a pretty significant change. The Runehorn Hellkite was something I wanted in order to beat counterspells in that last video. We don't have any lands to tap for red mana, but you do have Lotus Petal, Mox Opal, and then Lion's Eye Diamond wherever that's hiding. Here we go. In order to make that red mana for the Runehorn Hellkite. We're also playing a Song of Creation. This is a card that I wanted for beating Graveyard Hate. In that last video, I felt like it was sorely missing, and we're playing it today. It's even a little bit easier to cast because we're playing a Bayou in the main deck to help support the sideboard copy of Haywire Might. So now that you have Bayou for green, Underground Sea for blue, you're just missing red. And as I've mentioned previously, you have artifacts that help make red mana in case your Beseech Dimir doesn't cast your Song of Creation. That's the idea. We're also playing Mastermind's Acquisition over Deathwish. This is pretty interesting to me because you can loop Mastermind's Acquisition with Echo of Eons so you can cast multiple sideboard cards. For example, you could play the One Ring and then shuffle in the Mastermind's Acquisition once again with the Echo of Eons and then empty the Warrens in order to beat an opposing copy of the One Ring. So you give yourself protection from everything while making a giant army of goblins. Okay, well that's pretty cool. The other nice thing about Mastermind's Acquisition is that it can find cards in your main deck, like Lion's Eye Diamond, for example, or the Runehorn Hellkite. Song of Creation, there's a number of things it can search for, but it has more utility than Deathwish, so I think it makes a lot of sense to see that change. But those are the major changes. Thank you once again to Peyton's Story for submitting your deck to this channel. I really do appreciate your support. Everyone, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, like, comment, subscribe, and let us know what you think of this deck list. I'll see everyone in match number 1. Don't go anywhere. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. You can also show your support by becoming a member of this channel. You get sweet perks such as badges, emotes, early access to videos, exclusive members-only content, and access to our members Discord section. As you increase the tiers, there are other rewards such as shop discounts, sideboard guides, and even free donation decks. Click the join button down below to find out more. We also have other ways you can support us, like theepicstorm.com/shop or submitting a donation deck via theepicstorm.com/donation decks. That's enough for now. Let's play some Magic. Welcome to match number 1. We're on the draw. I have no idea what our opponent's playing, but I'm going to keep this. So you have Thoughtseize on turn 1, and then on turn 2, you can go Dark Ritual, Entomb, Chromox, Imprint Echo of Eons, and then Flashback Echo of Eons. Our opponent leads off with a Misty Rainforest into Underground Sea, and they play a Ponder. They shuffled with the Ponder. Okay. Beseech the Mirror. Okay, well that might be better than my Imprint Echo plan. I still think we would like to play Chromox this turn in order to avoid being dazed. And we'll still imprint the Echo because it gives me the possibility of still taking that line if I don't want to do Dark Ritual Beseech the Mirror. And we'll play Thoughtseize. Wasteland is not good for me here. We'll take the Daze. Okay. If this was a fetch land instead of a Bayou, we would be in a much better spot. So they're going to destroy the Bayou, and then they can play Ponder, digging for another piece of interaction. They shuffled with the Ponder. Okay. Like a Chromox or a Lotus Petal would be incredible here. Let's see it. There's a Saga. I mean, it's technically a land. We'll play it and pass. They play Polluted Delta and a Brainstorm. So this will allow them to convert this Fatal Push into something more useful. And now they fetch with the Polluted Delta and Thoughtseize. Okay, so if I were them, I would take the Dark Ritual, but they take Beseech the Mirror. Because I could still go Dark Ritual Echo of Eons off of the Entomb. Let's see, the draw a Thoughtseize. That doesn't really help me here. We have to pass the turn. They have 5 cards in hand, and they're just going to pass. Did you put back both Nethergoyf and the Fatal Push on the Brainstorm? Maybe. Lotus Petal's a good draw. We'll float a colorless here. And I think I'm supposed to grab a Chrome Mox. We'll imprint 1 copy of Entomb. And then let's Thoughtseize. They don't know that I have the Lotus Petal. So, from their perspective, I have Dark Ritual Entomb, and I might not have it. They flash in an Orcish Bowmasters. Okay, that makes sense why you wouldn't play Nethergoyf then. And now Thoughtseize. They kept the Fatal Push and the Nethergoyf. So we'll take the Daze here because Force of Will doesn't have a blue card. And now we'll play Lotus Petal, Dark Ritual, Entomb. And we're going to have to get a little lucky here in order to beat this Orcish Bowmasters because this deck does not have a Veil of Summer to protect us. So we'll grab an Echo. And now we'll flash back the Echo of Eons, floating a black mana. Storm is 6. We found the Tendrils, but I'm 1 mana short of casting it. That hurts. Okay. And I go to 8, and they have Lethal on board. We just needed 1 more mana. Yeah, there's nothing I can do here. Okay, we lose game number 1. So close. One of the downsides, and I'm not trying to always harp on other Storm decks for not being the Epic Storm, but without Veil of Summer, you do lose a little bit of equity against things like Orcish Bowmasters, Chalice of the Void, etc. Okay, so we're facing Dimir Tempo, which usually plays a couple copies of Null Rod in the sideboard. So we probably want Into the Flood Maws, or at least a couple of them. Tezzeret seems like a tough card in this matchup, so I think I'm going to just get rid of those. I understand its consistency for finding your Lion's Eye Diamond, but a 3-mana Planeswalker that just eats it to Daze or Orcish Bowmasters is difficult in a matchup like this. So I'd rather have the Into the Flood Maws. We probably want the Empty the Warrens. It's not good against Tamiyo though, so maybe we don't want it. It does give you a line to avoid Orcish Bowmasters though. What if we swap it with the Mastermind's Acquisition? Yeah, I think I'm willing to try this. On the play for game number 2. I think this is a protected turn 1 if the defense grid resolves. So we'll keep. They also kept. Okay, we'll play the Marsh Flats. Let's grab the basic Swamp here so that way we can avoid Wasteland. There we go. Play a Dark Ritual. And now we'll try Defense Grid. Please resolve. Nope, they have a Force of Will. Ooh, they're switching blue cards apparently. They Force of Negation, exiling Force of Will. They have 5 cards remaining. I'll play out Lion's Eye Diamond, and then unfortunately I have to pass the turn. If you're someone who's thinking, Bryant, you still have a win, unfortunately I don't. The Mox Opal does not have Metalcraft, so it does not tap for mana here. They play a Verdant Catacombs, another Lion's Eye Diamond, so I do have the ability here to try to win again. We'll play the Dark Ritual, and I think I would like to sacrifice the Mox Opal. Yeah, we'll sacrifice the Mox Opal. So that resolved. Okay. I'm trying to think, like, what I should be playing around here. Like, I could try to beat Fairy Macabre by getting double Beseech Dimir. But then I would lose pretty hard to a Fairy Macabre on Lion's Eye Diamond. Or is that even true? No, I wouldn't. So I could beat Fairy Macabre. Maybe that is the line. Also, potentially helps me beat Consigned to Memory. I guess I can't be dazed, though, if I take that line, which is a problem. So maybe this line just, like, didn't matter. So we'll grab the Guy's Will here. And I think I'm going to just leave this Lion's Eye Diamond in play. We'll play the Marsh Flats. So I think we're supposed to try to beat Consigned to Memory, which means I'm supposed to go get the Song of Creation. So we'll play Lion's Eye Diamond. Play the Mox Opal. We'll fetch, grab Underground Sea, I suppose. We'll tap the Mox Opal. And now I will Beseech Dimir with Bargain, sacrifice that Mox Opal. And we'll grab Song of Creation. It's a lot of steps in order to beat the, what is it called? The Consigned to Memory. But I think you're supposed to do it. And if they have a Consigned to Memory, I still have 2 more triggers in the graveyard. Alright, well, the Thoughtseize there was pretty good. So now we'll play Thoughtseize, Storm 12. What's in your hand? Force of Will, double Wasteland. Wow. Okay, now we can play a Dark Ritual. And they concede. Nice. So they opened up on Triple Force Double Wasteland. That's a hand. I think we just run back the same configuration. Well, this hand is a clunker. We cannot keep that. Send it back. Okay. This loses pretty hard to like a Null Rod, but the rest of it's very good. We'll keep this. I think you're actually supposed to get rid of the Into the Floodmaw, even though I just said it loses to Null Rod. Okay. Looted Delta. No Thoughtseize, please. No Thoughtseize. Underground Sea. No! Ah, brutal. Why? You couldn't just play a Ponder? And they took my Thoughtseize. That's a little odd. Okay. Well, I'm on the Urza Saga game plan right now, so they might have a Wasteland, which is why they did that. We'll play the Urza Saga. Or they could have a Consigned Memory, I suppose. Lion's Eye Diamond, Mox Opal, and we'll pass. I suppose Null Rod also shuts that down, so they could have a number of follow-ups here that would wreck my day. And they're passing. I like that. Alright, step 1. Step 2, no Consigned Memory. Entomb a great draw here, because now we can go get the Runehorn Hellkite. Alright, this game is shaping up well. They fetch with the Polluted Delta. For another copy of Underground Sea. Is this an Orcish Bowmasters? It is. Okay. I could have used the Runehorn Hellkite in response there, but as of right now, I believe I'm supposed to be an Urza Saga gamer. They play land number 3 and a Ponder. I think this was a subtle misplay from the opponent. I think they should have held that land in case the Ponder found a Wasteland. They do not attack. And you could argue that I made a misplay, and I realized it last turn. I think I was supposed to fetch in my main phase, and it's a real small thing, but if they had played a Wasteland, and then I fetch, they could waste the Saga in response, and I'd be forced to burn the Dark Ritual. So, I think we each made a small error. Alright, so we'll make another construct, and let's grab a Candy Trail. Trigger. Don't think we need Into the Floodmaw, or the Lotus Petal. Let's go to combat. Swing for 6. They block. Okay. They have 4 cards in hand. So this game is one of the nice things about Urza Saga, where your opponent might keep a hand that's a lot of interaction, like a Force of Will, Force of Negation, Flusterstorm, those sort of things, and then you just make the game about something else. We're making it about constructs. If my opponent looked back on this game, and they're like, oh, I lost, which I don't even know if I'm going to win, but if they look back and they're like, oh, I lost, I would argue that the turn 1 Thoughtseize was a little short-sighted because they took my Thoughtseize. I would have taken, if I was in their shoes, I would have taken a Lion's Eye Diamond. Because even though I have 2 of them, it would have shut off the Metalcraft for Mox Opal, so then my Urza Saga likely wouldn't have done anything. And like basically you cripple the hand with 1 card, but instead they took a card that I'm not even convinced was that important. And now they Thoughtseize again. So they could take my Entomb, but I don't know if I care because right now I just want to attack. Instead they took a Mox Opal. Like the Entomb here getting Runehorn Hellkite is way more valuable. They have 2 cards remaining. Into the Floodmaw. We will go to combat. We'll swing 12 at I'm sorry, 10 at them because of the Tamiyo triggers. And they're not going to block, they're just going to go to 4. Oh wait, I thought I attacked them. Apparently I attacked the Tamiyo. Whoops. My bad. Not the end of the world. A small mistake on my part. I could have swore I attacked them. Play mistakes happen. So they could fetch for a Surveil land here. Not playing my best so far. I feel like I'm playing okay, just not my best. They put a Wasteland to the graveyard. So they have 2 cards in their hand and now 3 with their draw step. I would be willing to bet money based on how this game has played out so far that it's Force of Will plus some sort of blue card. And they're going to attack. Does that mean that you drew into Kaito? Alright, no blocks. I'll go to 17. If it was Kaito, they can tap down my Construct token. And here's the Kaito, which I can't block because on their turn it has Hexproof. Which I can't bounce, I should say. I could block it, but I didn't block the Bowmaster, and now I can't bounce it because it has Hexproof. So they could -2 and tap down a Construct token permanently. Ooh, they're not going to do that. Okay. That was a very greedy line from the opponent. They're just banking on drawing the land for the Bowmasters. Now they play the Ponder that they've been holding. I'm guessing this was the card that they were holding for the Force of Will. So any artifact kills them now. They shuffled on the Ponder. In step, we will Entomb. And we'll grab Runehorn Hellkite because they can't Force of Will or Force of Negation that. And if they Surgical Extraction, they're dead. We'll play Dark Ritual. The defense grid here is actually lethal. So it has to be like pretty much exactly Force of Negation for them to live. And it was Force of Negation. Exile's Consigned to Memory. Okay. They have 2 cards in their hand. I'll lose the black mana. I'm going to go to combat. Should I kill the Kaito? Yeah, I think I will. Alright, so 6 at the Kaito, 6 at them. They go to 7. And I think I'm going to just pass here. We know that they're sitting on an Orcish Bowmasters. I could Runehorn Hellkite, but why would I don't see the need to give them 7 new cards that could potentially stop what I'm trying to accomplish here, which is just beating them to death. Right now, an Orcish Bowmasters doesn't beat me. So why would I give them the potential to do so? Like if they play Orcish Bowmasters as 2 blockers, I could just bounce the token, and then any artifact off the top would kill them. I think the lesson in this game would be to limit your opponent's outs of beating you, and using the Runehorn Hellkite there doesn't do that. It just means that you're more likely to lose the game, I believe. They play a Nethergoyf, okay. And then they still have Orcish Bowmasters open. End step will bounce the Nethergoyf. And a Lotus Petal. So now they have to block with the Bowmasters and the Orc Army, or else they're dead to the constructs. Swing. So they'll put 2 blockers into play, or they'll just lose. Okay. I guess they didn't want to flash in Orcish Bowmasters, or they just clicked through it. We win match number 1. How about that? Take that, Dimir Tempo. Urza Saga just beat you down. We got the win. I question a few things they did this game, but maybe I don't have all the information. I didn't see all the cards in their hand, but I think that turn 1 Thoughtseize was maybe not the correct choice. That said, we're 1-0. Let's go win match number 2. Moxfield.com is the easiest way to build a Magic deck online. They support over 30 formats, including Legacy and many other Eternal formats. There are so many options to view decks the way that you want, from text view to individual cards, mana value, and even card price. There's also light mode and dark mode. My personal favorite feature is card tags. This way you can sort cards by function. Moxfield supports collection tracking, Scryfall search, decklist feedback, and so much more. Follow me on Moxfield.com so you can stay updated on all of my decks. Round number 2. This time we're on the play. Okay, let's see it. This is an interesting hand. You're really all in on Urza Saga, but I think I'm down to keep this. You can go Lotus Petal, Mox Opal, Thoughtseize, and then decide if you want to play your Saga or not. Okay, a pair of Lotus Petals, Mox Opal, and Thoughtseize. They have the Wasteland. They're going to see my Saga anyway, so I think we're supposed to play it. My hand did not align super well against what our opponent's playing today. This looks like the Sultai Beanstalk deck. So they're probably going to fire off Wasteland on turn 1. And they do exactly that. Beseech the Mirror off the top. That's our best draw. Polluted Delta is not that, but I will say we are playing a deck that has 4 copies of Echo of Eons in it. So let's try to surveil here with the Undercity Sewers. Thoughtseize can go to the graveyard. We will pass. They play Misty Rainforest, Underground Sea, and they use one of the 2 copies of Thoughtseize. Goodbye, Dark Ritual. ND's the wrong... I would have taken any of the other 4 mana black cards, but we drew Tendrils of Agony. And they fire off the 2nd copy of Thoughtseize. They play Tropical Island and Ponder, digging for that Force of Will. They shuffle. 4 cards in their hand. Okay. So if they didn't find Force of Will out of the 3 unknowns, we win. Beseech the Mirror with Bargain, sacrifice Mox Opal. I don't think I even need to sacrifice the diamond here, but I could be wrong. They're at 15, so this would be Storm 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I don't have to sacrifice the Lines I diamond. We'll just play the guy as well. And the opponent concedes. Nice. Okay, well that worked out. Sultai Beanstalk. I'm still going to bring in the Empty the Warrens. I understand that they're a Tamiyo deck, but I just really have grown to like Empty the Warrens in order to beat a bunch of the graveyard hate, but also like Null Rod or Collector Oof off of Beseech Dimir. Probably swap with the Mastermind's Acquisition. I don't believe that they're a One Ring strategy. Once again, probably not a great Tezzeret matchup. I'll bring in 2 copies of Into the Floodmaw, and I think I'd like to bring in a Haywire Mite. Let's try this out. Decent. I don't think it's like a slam dunk, but I think it's fine. They kept 6. Tropical Island. Dark Ritual. That was a good draw. We will pass because I don't want to play the defense grid into a daze. They Brainstorm. Misty Rainforest. They fetch. 5 cards in hand. Underground Sea. Ponder. Okay. Are you holding open Veil of Summer? Is that why you've kept a Tropical Island 2 turns in a row? I think I'm not going to fetch the Surveil Land. I'd like to play around Wasteland a little bit. We'll just play the Polluted Delta and pass the turn. So next turn, I'm likely going to expose the Bayou. So I think that means this turn I will fetch for the Surveil Land. My plan previously was draw an imprintable that isn't Beseech Dimir, and then imprint, play Defense Grid through days, but then we kind of just drew nothing. I mean, the Dark Ritual was a good draw, don't get me wrong, but nothing to imprint to the Chrome Mox. We'll grab the Undercity Sewers, keep the Entomb. So I think that changes things. I'm more willing to imprint the Entomb here, or imprint the second copy of Beseech Dimir because I drew the Entomb, because that can grab a Runehorn Hellkite. And now we'll play the Defense Grid, and it looks like we have Veil of Summer backup, but we really don't. They daze. I would like to fetch first. Am I allowed to? Do you have a Stifle? They don't. We will grab the other Underground Sea. We're already exposed here, so might as well double down. Pay for days, Defense Grid. That resolved. Okay, so I think I'm going to Echo of Eons now. And this is one of the upsides of keeping the Entomb in hand. Okay, let's spin, baby. Oh, they just conceded. They were not interested in a new hand. Well, we're 2-0. How about that? Looking to make playing your favorite combo deck much easier? Look no further than the Epic Storm Mini Combo Pack, which is available at theepicstorm.com/shop for $15.99. This token combo pack comes with 84 double-sided tokens featuring classic Storm and Mana tokens with new inclusions such as our modern Ruby Storm package, but that's not all. Our token pack covers a variety of formats from Pauper to CDH with new tokens. Stop on by theepicstorm.com/shop and make an easy decision to elevate your combo game. Match number 3 on the play. I don't think you're supposed to keep this. Like, I don't know what our opponent's playing. If I knew that they were a control deck, I would keep this, but what if they're just playing Forge? Like, this hand would be embarrassing. Mulligan. So this is a turn 1 Echo of Eons. You bottom the Defense Grid, imprint the Mastermind's Acquisition, and then you can spin. If we get Force of Will, it's going to feel real bad. But I kind of like the idea of just spinning on turn 1. Keep, get rid of the Defense Grid. We'll play the Swamp, Chrome Mox, imprint the Mastermind's Acquisition, play Lotus Petal, and Entomb. We'll grab an Echo of Eons, and let's attempt to draw 7 new cards. Echo of Eons on the stack, Storm is 5. It resolves! Let's go. Unfortunately, we have to pass the turn, but this hand is good. I like it. And they have a random 7-card hand now. Versus Workshop. They're actually on Mystic Forge. I just randomly set a deck and then they were playing it. That's crazy. Grim Monolith. You're not supposed to Karn the Great Creator me on a random 7. Don't be like that. Don't be like that. Come on. Come on. No! Why are you like this? Why? Just rude. And they grab a Tormod's Crypt. Yep. We are not likely... So if I had drawn a Dark Ritual, we could have beaten it. But then they went and grabbed the Tormod's Crypt. So it is possible for us to win this, but very unlikely. I can go grab Song of Creation and then trigger it twice with Lotus Petals. But we want to draw an untapped black land. And then 2 Dark Rituals into a Beseech Dimir into Tendrils of Agony. It's going to be an uphill battle. I'm willing to accept that. But it's a line that could theoretically win here. We'll grab the Song of Creation, the Lotus Petal, trigger the Song. We want to draw zeros. That is by far the best thing we could hit here. Those are not zeros. We'll play a Chrome Mox. We have no way to answer this Karn the Great Creator. We did not hit any more zeros, so we're going to have to pass the turn. I guess we'll imprint the Entomb, it just doesn't matter. And then we'll play Undercity Sewers. Saga doesn't trigger Song of Creation next turn, so we're not going to keep it. And then, unfortunately, I have to pass. And then they can Tormod's Crypt to exile my Echoes next turn. They have 4 cards in their hand. Urza's Saga. The Urza's Workshop, or I'm sorry, Ancient Tomb. The Urza's Workshop does not have another Urza land. Ooh, they plus the Karn. Interesting. I guess it shuts off Metalcraft, but not that important here. They have 3 open mana for a Glaring Fleshraker. I just want something that triggers Song of Creation. That'll do. So let's play it. Okay. This is a good start. Mox Opal. Dark Ritual is lovely. Okay, Storm is now 3. Lion's Eye Diamond is 4. So now we're just looking for like a Beseech Dimir. Are we going to beat a turn 1 Karn the Great Creator? Please tell me it's true. We'll play a Thoughtseize here. There's a Beseech Dimir. I think we got it. Take your One Ring. We'll play Urza's Saga. Tap the Saga. And then we'll play Beseech Dimir, bargain away a Mox Opal. Go grab a Dark Ritual. I guess I could grab another Beseech Dimir instead. We'll do that. Sacrifice a Lotus Petal. And now we'll grab Tendrils of Agony. We just beat a turn 1 Karn the Great Creator. You know, a lot of people think that Storm is the bad guy deck. I would argue the deck playing turn 1 Karn the Great Creator is the bad guy deck, but that's just me. Opinions may vary. Sweet. Love it. Okay. Definitely interested in Empty the Warrens and 4 copies of Into the Floodmaw. Haywire okay. You could probably take out Defense Grids, so we'll shave on those. Thoughtseize is fine, but we're at 63. I kind of want to leave in the Masterminds acquisition so that way I can grab the One Ring. So there's really like 2 ways to play this. We're on the draw, so Thoughtseize is a little bit worse. You could board down on Thoughtseize, or you could just take out the Tezzerets again. And I feel bad taking out the Tezzerets all the time. They do help with getting Lion's Eye Diamond, which is pretty huge. I think I'll do 2 Thoughtseize and 1 Tezzeret. So we're leaving in 2 Thoughtseize, 2 Tezzeret, and we'll see how this goes. So we have Dark Ritual off of Chrome Mox where you imprint a black card, Tezzeret for Lion's Eye Diamond, but then you don't have a black for Entomb. So any mana off the top could be a turn 1 Echo. I think you're supposed to just send this one back. It's a little too risky. This is a turn 1 Echo off of Entomb. I think we keep this. We'll bottom the Gaia's Will. And they have a Leyline of the Void. Awkward. So the one saving grace of this hand is if I were to draw a land that produces black mana, I could hardcast Echo of Eons. A Mox Opal would also do it. A Chrome Mox would do it. Glaring Fleshraker, sure. Another Dark Ritual does not work. We will pass the turn. They play Urza's Saga. 3 cards remain in their hand. Grim Monolith. That's scary. Because now they have 4 mana. They could play a One Ring or Karn the Great Creator. Mystic Forge. Manifold Key. Okay. Kozilek's Command is scary here. Looks like they're about to use the Manifold Key. No, they had their last card in hand was another Grim Monolith. Okay. So they have no hand. And now they untap a Grim Monolith. They can attack for 2. I'll go to 15. Mox Opal. Okay, let's peanut butter and jam. Lotus Petal, Lotus Petal. Mox Opal. Dark Ritual. So when all is said and done, we should have a bunch of mana floating. I think 4 is the number. I guess 3 is the number. But 3 mana floating, Storm 7. Chrome Mox is lethal. Chrome Mox Beseech Dimir for Tendrils of Agony. We'll imprint the Gaia's Will, I guess. Beseech Dimir, sacrifice the Mox Opal. Grab the Tendrils. Wow, we are just cruising through this league. Pew pew! That's a match one. That was like a 5-minute match. Alright, so, okay, the actual timer says 10 minutes unedited. I lied. But yeah, we're 3-0. This is exciting. Let's try to win match number 4. you're still watching, make sure to give this video a like, comment, and subscribe. While you're near the description, here's a reminder to use our affiliate links if you're going to make a purchase from Amazon, Card Hoarder, or TCG Player. Just above those affiliate links, you'll find our social channels. Make sure to join those to connect with us. Let's try to get in another win. It's match 4, we're on the play. This is a turn 1 Echo, or you could just go turn 1 Saga Pass. I think we keep this. Not sure what our opponent's playing. If I knew that they were like Oops All Spells or some fast combo deck, I would just spin the Echo, but I don't. We'll play out Lotus Petal, Lines of Diamond, Mox Opal, and Urza Saga. Pass the turn. They play a Scalding Tarn. Okay. So maybe like, is it Quarry Steel or something like that? From Mox. The Saga goes to the second chapter. I think we'll just make a Construct token. Underground Sea, so Dimir Reanimator. Yep. Okay. Archon of Cruelty. I wonder if they have the Atraxa in hand already, or if they think that they can't beat the constructs. Reanimate. We'll discard Echo of Eons. They're at 14 now. They play a Scalding Tarn. They fetch 13 life, and now they ponder. End step, let's make a construct. So this will be 4 power. We draw. It's a Lotus Petal. Okay. So I think we're supposed to make another construct here. This will mean that I'll end up with 1 construct after they attack. So if they attack, I'll lose 9. If I grab Candy Trail, it would actually keep me alive an extra turn, but then I'd have both my constructs gone. So I don't even know if that matters. I think the move is just another Lines Eye Diamond. We'll play Lotus Petal. Play Chrome Mox. I'm 1 artifact short of swinging back for lethal next turn. I guess that's actually not true because I'll lose the construct. No, that would be 1 short. So they'll go to 5 here. Next turn they attack, go up to 8, and I'll have 7 artifacts. So now they swing. Sacrifice the tapped construct, I guess. Sure. So my best draw would be an artifact. And then if I do connect, they cannot Force of Will, which means I could flash back the Echo of Eons. Mastermind's Acquisition. Interesting. We'll start by attacking. Wing. Orcish Bowmasters. Okay. That's annoying. I go to 7. They block. Storm is 1. So I lose to a Force of Will, but I believe I can create lethal. So I can Mastermind's Acquisition for Beseech Dimir, and then create lethal that way. I'm going to hold priority, cast Mastermind's Acquisition, sacrifice Lion's Eye Diamond, sacrifice Lion's Eye Diamond for black. Storm is 2. If this Orcish Bowmasters was a petty theft, we'd be in a much better spot because I could represent Echo of Eons and the Mastermind's Acquisition. But with it being Orcish Bowmasters, it actually cut off the Echo. This is another spot where not having Veil of Summer in the deck is a real cost. Because you don't even need the Veil of Summer in your hand. You could Echo of Eons, and then the Bowmaster triggers go on the stack, and then you could play a Veil of Summer that you theoretically drew off of the Echo. They're thinking a long time about this Mastermind's Acquisition, which tells me they have the Force, and they just realized that I'm not allowed to play Echo. After much deliberation, our opponent has played a Force of Will. And that's going to do it. They exiled an Atraxa Grand Unifier. I cannot flash back the Echo here because of the fact that I'm at 7. So they got me. Okay, we lose game number 1 to Dimir Reanimator. And now we get to bring in those Leyline of the Voids. And the Helm of Obedience, Nile Spellbomb, Aether Spellbomb. I don't know if we want to empty the Warrens, but that's a lot of cards coming in. Okay, so what are we going to take out? 68 cards. It's so many. I think the Tezzerets just have to go. We're facing a lot of Daze decks today, and Tezzeret just isn't good versus Daze. You can cut the Candy Trail because we're going to lean on Nile Spellbomb as our Urza Saga target. We'll probably get rid of the Mastermind's Acquisition. That's 63 cards. Actually, I don't need the Empty the Warrens because I'm never going to get it over Helm of Obedience, most likely, or Song of Creation. I think there's just too many Beseech Dimir targets, and they're also a Tamiyo deck. So I think I'm fine choosing Helm or Song. Now it's the tough stuff. Like, I don't really know, and I'm 2 cards short here. I have a minute 30 to figure it out. I don't love it, but I think it maybe is supposed to be like one opal, one chrome. There's just nothing else you're really allowed to sideboard out. And the games against Dimir do go a little bit longer, so I think it makes sense to board out some acceleration. My fear is just losing to Days Wasteland. Yeah, I mean, part of the reason I put Aether Spellbomb and Nile Spellbomb in the deck is to leverage Urza Saga a little bit more, so I don't mind this. We'll play Lotus Petal, Mox Opal, play the Chrome Mox, no Imprint, and Thoughtseize. Those are a bunch of cards I do not care about. I mean, I kind of care about double Brazen Borrower. Like, that's a little annoying. So we'll take one Brazen Borrower, play the Urza Saga, pass the turn. I kind of have to hope that they just get stuck on one land here. They play Underground Sea and Thoughtseize. So they'll look at two lands. They ripped their one of Engineered Explosives. I think we just lost. I guess they could not draw the land. Wow. Dimir Reanimator plays one Explosives and they drew it. We need them to not find the land. And they're... Oh, there's no justice. Oh, wow. Yeah, sometimes you just lose. That happens. Oh, that's rough. Okay. We'll draw for turn. Dark Ritual. I suppose we'll make another construct. They fetch in response. I don't have a needle anyway. Okay, so now the Urza Saga ability, and they'll use the explosives now. We'll grab a Nile Spellbomb. Play Verdant Catacombs. So the hope now is that I draw another Urza Saga. That is how we win this game. They drew back-to-back perfect cards. Like, it just makes my opening hand look bad. But I would keep that 7 all over again. You can't bank on your opponent hitting Runner. We'll grab Undercity Sewers. I don't think I want the Aether Spellbomb. Entomb. The problem is that the Entomb doesn't beat the Force of Will in their hand. So now they'll attack with the Tamiyo Inquisitive Student. They get to create a clue. They draw with the clue. Plays Flooded Strand. I think I'll sit on the Entomb in case I draw Lion's Eye Diamond, and then I could theoretically go grab Runehorn Hellkite. Beseech the Mirror. Okay, so maybe I'll try and end step Entomb to draw a Force of Will now. I doubt it will happen, but it could. They Surveil with Undercity Sewers on my end step. They put Reanimate to the graveyard. They swing. Okay, they have 6 cards in hand. We know 3 of them. End step will try and Entomb. They're resolved. I guess we'll just grab an Echo of Eons here. Lotus Petal. We'll play the Petal. And then the question is, am I supposed to try to flash back the Echo here? I think yes. We could use the Petal to pay for days. So maybe this draws out a Force of Will. Force of Negation. We'll pass. They swing with the Tamiyo. They get to create another clue here. 6 cards in their hand. They reanimate the Brazen Borrower. That's fine. Clue to Delta. I am just looking for a protection spell. They use the clue to draw a card. They have 7 cards in their hand. Murktide Regent. I guess I could have used the Nile Spellbomb more proactively. I was going to do it on their end step here. Yeah. So now they swing. Ouch. I go to 14. They have 6 cards. On the end step, I'll fetch, and then I'm going to use the Spellbomb to draw a card. Really hoping to draw into like a Thoughtseize. We'll pay a black. Through a Dark Ritual. So now I guess Defense Grid could do it. Draw for turn. Song of Creation. I could theoretically cast it here. I don't think I have enough to Beseech and Song, though. Because I have 8 total mana, but what I don't have is the ability to bargain and play Song. I guess I could just cast Song. We'll play Song of Creation. They Force Will, exiling Brazen Borrower. Okay, we'll pass. They have 4 cards in their hand. They're attacking for 10 this turn, so it's not quite lethal. Okay, I'm at 3. They have Days and 4 unknown cards. We drew Gaia's Will. So there's no real avenue to victory here because I don't have a bargainable for the Beseech the Mirror. So I could just play Beseech floating 1, but then I can't really do anything. I guess if for some reason they played like multiple Brainstorms in response, I could win. But they had another Force of Will. Unfortunately, our opponent drew Engineered Explosives very quickly this game. And we got our first match loss. We're now 3-1 with 1 match left to go.
The Gold Sabertooth times the Epic Storm collection has arrived with 3 full-size tokens showcasing the beloved Dark Ritual, CDH Rogsai, and Legacy of the Epic Storm for just $5. On the backs of these tokens, there's a place for my signature or a custom message. In addition to these sweet tokens, a friendly reminder that all orders that ship from theepicstorm.com also come with a signed Storm token from yours truly.
The final round. Let's try to get a victory. Finish this with what Brian Koval would call a bread and butter 4-1. Alright, so Undercity Sewers being a tap land here is a little awkward. We don't actually have enough mana to do anything. We'll send this one back. This hand is a clunky one. So your first play is turn 3 Tezzeret Cruel Captain. And then you can minus to go grab a Chrome Mox that would allow you to play Beseech Dimir on turn 4. I don't think there's a single deck in Legacy where this hand is actually a keep. Legacy is full of powerful things, and expecting you to go unscathed until turn 4 is not realistic. Down to 5. Okay, I mean, this hand has a game plan. I don't love it, but it exists. So here, you go Thoughtseize, turn 1 off of Lotus Petal, play Urza Saga, and then the Saga is basically just suspend 3 into Lion's Eye Diamond. I mean, it's a game plan. It could theoretically win. Not versus this, though. Wow. Oh, it's brutal. We'll take the Force of Negation. So what does a winning game look like? I think that's the question you have to ask yourself. A winning game is them wasting me and then me drawing Lion's Eye Diamond. That gets us back in the game. There is a way that we can win this. Conceding immediately would be a little short-sighted. You do have 4 opportunities or 4 copies of Lion's Eye Diamond in your deck that you could draw. And they don't even play the turn 1 Wasteland. Okay, so Saga will now go to the second chapter. Of course we draw Gaia's Will. Worst possible draw on the deck. And that will pass. The Wasteland will come down this turn. Yep. Okay. And they're not playing Tamiyo because they must have drawn Reanimate if they're going to play the Entomb. Will pass. And there's Entomb. So they have 2 cards that we know about. They search out the Atraxa Grand Unifier. And they did have the Reanimate. Classic Reanimator opening. Oh, brutal. Force, Thoughtseize, Wasteland, Entomb, Reanimate. I am so sick of this deck. It really needs to go. Alright, so we'll bring in Helm of Obedience, Leyline of the Void, Aether Spellbomb, Nile Spellbomb. I mean, I've been pretty vocal about my opinion on the Eternal Glory podcast. I don't believe Tamiyo is actually enough. And people get upset with me when I say this, but I believe the card is Entomb. When you look at decks like Sneak and Show in comparison to Reanimator, it is forced to play a much larger package. You have to play 4 Show and Tell, 4 Sneak Attack, 4 Emrakul, 4 Atraxa / Gristlebrand, whatever. And basically, there's 16 cards in your deck that are bare minimum dedicated to the combo. Most decks play more. Some play Omniscience, some play more than 8 creatures, stuff like that. When you look at Reanimator, it gets to be so compact because Entombment allows you to have just perfect silver bullets. If you remove Entomb, they're forced to play things like Careful Study or Faithless Looting again. And then they have to play more monsters, so there's actually a much larger package that they have to play. And then it has to be a dedicated Reanimator deck where they don't get to also be a tempo deck. But people don't want to ban Entomb, even though it's actually the problematic card. If you compare it to when they banned Survival of the Fittest in Legacy back in 2012, I believe, they mentioned how Survival limited the type of creatures that they could print in the future. Entomb does the same thing. It really does. Yes, Survival is all creatures, where Entomb is only large creatures, but it does limit the type of creatures that are allowed to print. Any large creature has to go underneath the microscope of, will Entomb break this card? And that's why people think Atraxa is the thing. I believe if you remove Atraxa a year or 2 from now, they'll just print something just as good, and we're in the same spot once again. Entomb is really the problematic card, but Legacy players are stuck with this idea that you have to keep old cards around, which I don't believe is true at all. And sometimes you just have to remove the poison of the format, and Entomb is the poison. I am struggling to remember what other 2 cards I removed last time. It was the Mastermind's Acquisition. I already cut... Oh, it's another Thoughtseize. Okay, there we go. Like, my fear is that on November 10th, I believe, is the new BNR date. that it's like either one, nothing, because the people in charge of the last BNR update clearly didn't know what they were doing, or two, they're like just Tamiyo and we'll see what else, you know, trickles down. And the problem is just Tamiyo leaves Mystic Forge. Reanimator would still be insanely good. And I just don't think just Tamiyo is enough. Like, I think the One Ring should probably be looked at because the Mystic Forge deck, it put 3 copies into Eternal Weekend North America top 8. You could look at Nadu. Oops All Spells is only being held down by the Dimir decks at the top of the format. So if you remove Tamiyo, which is in the 2 copies of the Dimir decks at the top, the Dimir decks, when you look at the matchup matrix of the, you know, deck breakdowns, Oops All Spells crushes most of everything except the Dimir deck. Cephalid Breakfast is very good against Oops All Spells as well. But outside of those 3 decks, Oops is favorable against the entire field. So I think Oops All Spells is probably going to get away and not be banned on November 10th, but it really shouldn't be. That's my own personal opinion. And, you know, I understand it's not a problem at the moment. The win rate says it's not, but wait a week or 2 after the BNR update and you'll see how good Oops All Spells is. Lotus Petal, and we'll play Entomb. Echo of Eons, pass the turn. I'm 1 mana short of flashing it back this turn. The Nadu decks had a very, very good match win percentage at Eternal Weekend, but it was a smaller sample than Mystic Forge or Reanimator, but it was 56%, which is like that target number. We did not draw a mana source, so if I jam right now, I would lose to a Daze. They exiled the Tamiyo last time. The fear is that they just go end step Entomb Reanimate, because they, you know what? We're just going to do it. I could always just draw Lion's Eye Diamond and we'll be right back in it. They fetch. And I don't know if like actual waiting improves my odds at all. They Brainstorm. Because if I wait, I could just lose to Entomb Reanimate and then, you know, I'd second guess myself there. So let's just make them have the Daze. They don't. We'll play Lotus Petal. Unfortunately, we're short on mana and I drew the guy as well. We have to pass. Thoughtseize. This was sort of my fear. You know, last round how I mentioned how I was nervous about boarding out Chrome Mox and Mox Opal? This is why. Those artifacts really do help quite a bit in beating blue decks and like consistency with your deck. The Leyline of the Void Helm of Obedience package takes up 5 slots. And I ended up boarding out cards I like. I don't want to board out Thoughtseize versus the Dimir deck. I don't want to board out Chrome Mox or Mox Opal. I think the reality is that maybe we shouldn't be playing Helm of Obedience plus Leyline of the Void, but it was in the deck list. So that's what I'm playing today. But I think maybe you're supposed to move away from the Leyline Helm package. I'm not sure. We'll play the Undercity Sewers, Surveil Echo to the graveyard, and we'll suspend the guy as well. Pass the turn. Our opponent plays Brainstorm. Polluted Delta. Not doing anything. Interesting. Guys will lose as a suspend counter. Beseech Dimir number 3. We'll attempt a defense grid. Consign a memory. Pass the turn. They surveil with Undercity Sewers. Puts Wasteland to the graveyard. Interesting. And now they ponder. So something you might be thinking about is, I'm sitting here complaining about Dimir Reanimator. I completely understand that. I did not mulligan aggressively either of these post-board games for Leyline of the Void, even though it's in my deck. And part of the reason why is that this deck is so good at beating Leyline of the Void that you're not supposed to mulligan for it. Basically, the 2 to 3 copies of Brazen Borrower that they play are easily found using Brainstorm, Brainstorm, Ponder, Tamiyo, Inquisitive Student, that many people, including myself, don't believe Leyline is even good against this deck. I do think like Fairy Macabre, Nile Spellbomb, those effects are good against this deck, but I don't think mulliganing to Leyline is a winning strategy. Speaking of Leyline of the Void, so I could flash back the Echo here. I lose the Daze, and they've had plenty of sculpting ability between the Brainstorm and the Ponders, so I'm going to just pass here. Now they play a Thoughtseize. Clunky, clunky, clunky. That is my hand. They take the Helm of Obedience. So now if they have another Dauthi Voidwalker, they could deck me. Okay. We're going to use the Dauthi Voidwalker. They play the Helm. Sure. Oh, they could reanimate the Dauthi. That's sick. I love it. This is so cool. Oh, I love it. That is awesome. That is a sweet line. That is really awesome. Like, it's hard to be upset about that. Although they're taking a while to figure out how to activate it. All right, I'm just going to concede because they've taken like 30 seconds on this. All right, so we went 3-2. 3-0 into double reanimator 3-2. What did I think of the deck list? It was an improvement from the last time we played. I liked not having Grim Monolith or Karn, the great piece of trash. The Candy Trail was fine. Tezzeret Cruel Captain was okay. It was worse than it was last time, but still decent. I did like the Song of Creation, Runehorn Hellkite changes. In fact, I liked most of the changes. I mean, we didn't win using Aether Spellbomb or Nile Spellbomb, but having those as Saga targets I think was meaningful. I liked the deck list. I think the main deck is probably, I would leave it alone, and I'd look at cutting the Leyline of the Void Helm of Obedience package from the sideboard. That's my 2 cents. That said, by the time this video goes public, the BNR update will be very close to happening. As I record this, it's only October 20th, so it's not that close. I'm recording like 2 weeks out at the moment because my paternity leave will end, and then I'm not going to be able to record as frequently as I do, so I have a little bit of a large buffer right now. But hopefully you still enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. That's all I've got for today, so thanks for listening to me ramble and rant a little bit. Really, I do appreciate it. I hope you have a wonderful day, and as always, keep storming.
Hey, Bryant Cook, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. There's no better way to support our channel. If you're interested in elevating your combo game, visit theepicstorm.com/tutoring for details about our coaching sessions. Don't worry, there's more great combo content coming right up.